it's easy if you're in healthcare to be like, okay, people don't want our healthcare product and we haven't made the right product. But you could be building a great product during a bear market in crypto and it just might not be the right time. And so I see that there's a lot of founders that get rewarded purely for surviving.
Hey everybody, Tanner here with Wagme Ventures. On today's episode, we have Alex Adelman, CEO and founder at Lolli. For anyone who's new, this is the Wagme Ventures podcast, where we do snapshots with interesting builders, founders, and investors from across Web3. Check out wagmeventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. But for now, let's get into it with Alex at Lolli. All right, hey everybody, this is Tanner with the Wagme Ventures podcast. I'm here today with Alex Adelman, founder and CEO at Lolli. Alex, how's it going today? What's up?
Good. Great day to be building in the Bitcoin space.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited to chat. I know there's a ton to talk about. So let's just jump in. I'd love to talk a little bit about your path because you've had this interesting path already as kind of a serial founder, now on your second venture. So maybe talk a little bit about your crypto journey as it intersects with your professional journey leading up to the creation of Lolli.
So my crypto journey is a long and winding road, but I'll keep it as concise as possible. And so I started building apps and games when I was like 10, almost accidentally. I really enjoyed making video games and sort of accidentally taught myself how to program. And then fast forward many years, I realized I could make more money, making sites and apps for other companies. And so I started to take on these contracts and started to hire engineers from all over the world, and anywhere from like Bangladesh, India to Ukraine, and realized that money was very broken when I wasn't just paying, the engineer down the street. I was paying, people across the world. When you send money and you study, the flows of money, especially cross countries, you start to realize how broken fiat money is. So that was one of my first realizations, that money was not really made for the internet, or fiat money was not really made for the internet. And then many years later, I was starting a payments company called Cosmic back in 2011, and we were trying to solve the problem of democratizing online commerce. So giving people the ability to buy and sell anywhere. People were really good at selling things directly on their own sites, let's say like Nike.com or Adidas.com, but they're really bad at selling outside of their sites on Instagram or Pinterest or Google or YouTube. So what we did is we created this bridge that let the Nikes and the Adidas of the world sell their products externally on third-party sites. We were regarded as creating the first dynamic buy button, and had a lot of fun and a lot of success with that. The early days of it were really difficult, and probably a story for another time. But in that journey, I was building a payments company, and so I really got under the hood of the payments problem and saw very deeply how broken fiat money was. And so in my founder journey, I was crashing on couches in New York, paying myself nothing, just trying to survive, bootstrapping my company. And I bumped into this guy at a bar, and he had just gotten into Bitcoin, and he was obsessed, as many of us are when we first get into it. And so he, shared with me, everything he knew about Bitcoin. We ended up closing out the bar that night, talking for 4 hours. And I think, very fortunately, immediately sold on it. I think some people, it takes months or years for them to get into Bitcoin. But given my background and why I shared that background is because I had already seen a lot of the problems with fiat money. And I, was a kid of the internet and saw how cool and money on the internet that was internet native money could be. So I got into Bitcoin very easily, I would say, comparative to most, given my background. And just became obsessed. I started bringing it to all of our merchant partners. I think I was probably one of the first, if not the first, to bring it to a lot of the major Fortune 500. So, walking the door of Target and Macy's and Walmart and saying, hey, there's this really cool technology and it lets people pay anywhere in the world. But they had all the same complaints or criticisms. They thought, oh, Bitcoin is really cool money. This is really cool technology, but people don't have it. So the people that have it don't want to spend it because it was going up over time or is very volatile. And I think everyone's kind of learned that lesson the hard way of Satoshi's original vision is slightly different than where Bitcoin has really been adopted as a store of value. And then the last thing, still, which is a huge problem in the space today, is that remittance networks weren't set up. So merchants, even if they wanted to accept it, they would have had to convert it back to US dollars for accounting purposes, for finance purposes. Things become very difficult when you are putting the onus on your finance department, your treasury department of these major Fortune 500s to accept Bitcoin. So this was all in 2013, 2014. I saw that we were very early, we were day one, and that we were not going to win by solving any of those problems at that moment. And I'm really glad that we didn't go that route as a payments company. Fast forward a bunch, we ended up getting acquired by a company called Pop Sugar to come and empower $1.2 billion in retail revenue. We then, a year later, after 10x growth, we were acquired again by another bigger company called Rakuten. Many people know it as the biggest cashback company in the US and many parts of the world. And so I got to learn a lot over those years from meeting the team at Honey and the team at Rakuten and many other rewards companies. I got to, I would say, become an expert in the rewards and cashback space during those years of building Cosmic. And being a Bitcoiner, I was like, wow, people are really not using this thing for the original vision of payments. But what if we could make it really easy for people to set up a wallet and earn it, similar to the way that it was so easy for the early Bitcoin faucet days for people to just click a button and do a recapture or do a capture, and ended up getting free 5 free Bitcoin every day. I was like, what if you could make it that easy and you could attach it to something that people do all the time, which is shop, and sort of create a Trojan horse for Bitcoin with rewards. So we launched the first ever Bitcoin rewards company back in 2018 called Lolli. And I'll kind of stop it there. And that's my journey to Lolli.
Amazing. Okay. Love it. So let's talk about Lolli here. Could you maybe unpack a little bit what Lolli is and what you're seeking to enable with what you're building?
Yeah, we're trying to create the easiest on-ramp for the masses into Bitcoin and crypto as a whole. I'm a big believer in behavioral psychology and in the intersection of technology, and you have to meet people where they are. You have to give people an incentive, a reason to use the technology that you're creating. And the easiest time to get somebody is when they're already used to doing something. And in our case, people already shop. I would say every adult in the US and everywhere in the world considers themselves a shopper. And many of those people now consider themselves online shoppers. So we now have a solution that lets people earn Bitcoin when they shop online or when they shop in store, really giving people next to no excuse not to be earning some Bitcoin and cash as well.
Very cool. Okay. So, we could probably take this any number of directions, but it seems like one thing that at least seems apparent from the outside is that you really got to get partnerships right for this type of business, right? And it seems like you guys are already hitting it out of the park with an Instacart partnership announced last month. And I think there's rumblings of some other partnerships we could talk about. So maybe could you talk a little bit about what you look for in partners and what that process has looked like? Maybe, through the Instacart lens or any other lens of any other recent partnerships.
Yeah, we like to, partner with companies where we can drive incremental value to them, and then also provide a service and utility for our users. So, if CVS is a good example where people go to CVS all the time, but if they could earn Bitcoin, they'll probably go a little bit more. And so we can show value to CVS, and we can give value to our end user that wants to earn on their everyday purchases. So they might, or they do, we study this pretty actively, is they will go to CVS because of Lolli instead of Walgreens because we have the Bitcoin rewards. So that's the value prop that we give to companies like Instacart or CVS or Safeway or Adidas, any of one of our partners. So there's really no reason why a merchant at this point shouldn't work with Lolli. And also keeping in mind that we're not reinventing the wheel on rewards. Rewards on the internet have been around since the beginning. We're simply taking a crypto spin on it, which brings in a whole new user base. A lot of these people, don't use rewards platforms, but they know how valuable every Satoshi is, every Bitcoin is. And so they very much want to earn these rewards on their everyday purchases because it's a currency that they're trying to acquire. And there's only 21 million Bitcoin. And I think once you realize that, you're trying to, I think there's a phrase that our users like to use is like, every Satoshi counts, every sat counts. And even if you're just earning, $5 to $15 on your everyday purchases, that's a lot. And it adds up. Like I've earned $12,000 using Lolli over the years, and I'm clearly biased, but I'm not even a big shopper. I just casually, use it when I'm making my everyday purchases, and I've earned a lot of money. That's a lot of Bitcoin.
Love it. Okay, perfect. Hey everybody, quick thing here. We're excited to announce WAGMI Advisory, your home for all things fundraising, hiring, and partnerships. This is all about supercharging your project with the WAGMI network consisting of over 20,000 executives, investors, and builders in crypto, all ready to come alongside your project to help it succeed. Get in touch at team@wagmiventures.io to learn more and figure out if WAGMI Advisory is the right fit for your project. Now, let's get back to the show. So one recurring question on this podcast is always around it's really flip side of the same coin, I think. But the first part is really just about early challenges and how you and your team went about solving for those. And so to put the question to you, what were maybe one or two early challenges that you guys face at Lolli, and how did you guys think about solving for those? Because I always think there's interesting clues to the DNA of an organization and how some of those early challenges get solved. So I'm curious what that looks like for Lolli.
Yeah, great question. So I think with every startup, no matter if you're a crypto startup or not, there are inherent challenges to any early stage company when you're trying to find product market fit. And I think one of the biggest challenges we found is you have to, when you're building a crypto company, you have to time the market well and you have to survive. And most companies don't operate on cyclical behavior. They operate on a known market. So just for the sake of this example, if you are building let's just say a beverage company, people drink all the time. It's something that people will do. They're used to drinking. You're not creating new behavior. There's no cyclical behavior. There's not times where people drink more than others. And so when you're selling let's just say like water, people are going to drink bottled water. And so, sure, there's challenges around being the best water. How do you market it? How do you distribute it into stores? But for the most part, there's always demand for bottled water. When you're building a crypto company, every 4 years, every 3 years, really, there's, if look historically since Bitcoin was created, there's demand for about a year. And that's just, how history has proven itself. There's demand for a year, and you have to really capture that demand. And if you study, Coinbase and Kraken and Gemini and the exchanges, which are arguably the best businesses and most proven businesses, they try to make as much money during these bull markets, and then they try to survive during the bear markets. And that's that. And they make next to no money during the bear markets. They just sort of just try to survive. So, I think like studying history and comparable companies is really good. And it was really indicative of Lolli as well. Like, we very much struggled during bear markets because we had to convince people that they wanted Bitcoin when no one wanted Bitcoin during bear markets. When Bitcoin went from 69, it was great to ride it up to 69K, but then, there was 2-3 years where it was, going down to 15K. So I think those are the biggest challenges, is that Bitcoin rewards are great when Bitcoin goes up, and Bitcoin rewards are challenging when they go down. So one of the ways we solve that is by going back to our roots. I think we have the best, if not one of the best, just pure rewards teams in the world. We've been building in this space for a very long time. We know every business model there is around rewards. And so we were able to be very nimble and to get very creative and diversify our revenue during those times. So that's one of the, the many challenges that we faced early on. Another one is the chicken or egg. Because we are a business that has a two-sided market, we needed merchants on one side and we need users on the other. Getting merchants on board in the early days, I think, would have been tough for a lot of people. I think we were very fortunate that, I've been working with a lot of these merchants for now like 12 years. But at the time, I had, come off of success with my last company. I had made a lot of these Fortune 500 merchants a lot of money in the past. And so they didn't necessarily, to be perfectly honest, they didn't trust Bitcoin. They, trusted a very centralized team, which was our team, that, hey, we'd made you money in the past. Trust me, this Bitcoin thing is real, and we're going to try to make you money, and just kind of trust us on this one. And so there was a lot of trust in the early days from a lot of these merchants. And now, we are a category creator, but being a first mover is very difficult in any space. And there was a lot of difficulty convincing merchants to come on board in those early days to get, scale. Now we have thousands of merchants. We have 47,000 plus locations across the US. And so now we're doing very well. We have, an arsenal of case studies where we make merchants just stupid amounts of money. So there's really no reason not to join us at this point. But in the early days, there definitely was a difficulty starting that chicken or egg.
Love it. Okay. Super insightful. So, the flip side of the challenges is maybe a more positive flavor, which could be maybe just categorized as surprises, where I'm curious for maybe one surprise for the sake of time here of kind of a positive tailwind or something that went differently than you expected it to, that ended up kind of favorable for Lolli in the end.
So we, going back to kind of the bull and bear cycles, like we grow so quickly when price goes up. We are, and organically too. So, for during a bull market, we acquire users for, very little, and it becomes a very good tool for acquiring a very valuable customer. One of the hypotheses, but also surprises, was how valuable these users were. So, back in the, working at Rakuten and studying honey, those users are like about a fifth as valuable on paper as a crypto user. And so merchants want to attract a very high value customer that, if you're Nike, you want someone who's going to spend a lot of money. If you're a travel partner, you want someone who's going to travel a lot. And so a lot of these merchants look at us as like the Amex users of the internet. And so as a rewards company that relies on merchants, to join us, to give us highest rates, to give our users the most, back in, at a market rate, that's really good for us. So that was a surprise, but also sort of a hypothesis we had early on, that if we attract a crypto user, that's going to be good for both the merchant and then have a flywheel effect to also give higher rates to a higher value customer, the same way that Amex has higher rewards than a Visa or MasterCard.
Love it. Super interesting. Okay. So, maybe taking a quick step back or a little bit bigger picture here, what gets you most excited as you think about kind of the mission and trajectory of what you're building at Lolli? Maybe looking a year out or maybe even 2 years out, which I know is difficult in this particular space, but, what gets you excited as you continue building what you're building?
The thing that, that I wake up every day and I think about is mass adoption. I think of how do we get Bitcoin in the hands of as many people as possible and teach the world about money. I think the world is highly financially illiterate, and it worries me. And I think that there's better, we as a species have created better money, or, should say Satoshi's created better money. And, there's hints that there's even, or there's better money that people are playing around with, and flexible money. And so I think I'm very excited about that future where people can choose their money and they can find financial freedom and move money all around the world and not be reliant on institutions or middlemen that are going to, seize or tax collect on the transaction side. I'm not talking about like government taxes, tax collect on the transaction side, when really we have the technology to not need that. So really excited about decentralization, really excited about self-sovereignty. And I think that Bitcoin enables that.
Love it. Okay. So let's take an even bigger step back here. I'd love to ask you some broader questions about the space kind of writ large here. And I think my first curiosity is, what do you think the Bitcoin space or the crypto space broadly is getting right in 2024? And where do you think we could be doing things a little bit better from your vantage point?
So I would say one of my more contrarian takes is I think meme coins are great for adoption. I think that's the meta right now that everyone is most excited about. And there's sort of this like meta parody from it, because I think a lot of these chains and tokens of previous bull cycles amounted to nothing. The promises fell short. The adoption of said technologies fell short. And what I think people realize is that Ethereum and Solana, created the best casino in the world. I think that Solana realized that and embraced it, whereas Ethereum denied that and fought it. And so you saw Solana, absolutely, dominate this bull cycle so far. And I'm very interested to see how that continues. I think that if Coinbase was not building an L2 with Base, I'd be very, let's just say that they chose Solana or something like that. I'd be very curious to see what this cycle would look like, because I feel like Base is largely saving Ethereum in the low cost, the transaction side, where, L1s really, Ethereum as an L1 fell short. So meme coins, I think, are good. I'm very excited about ordinals and runes. Runes are going to enable meme coins on Bitcoin. And I'm very excited to see what where people go with the creativity. I think there will be, tons of rug pulls, and everyone should be extremely cautious. But I also think, memes are a great way to onboard people. I think one thing that a lot of people get wrong in this space is that they undervalue price action as a marketing tool. When Bitcoin goes up, people pay attention to it. When Bitcoin stays the same, when it just hovers, that's arguably the worst thing. When Bitcoin goes down, the diehards, people who are believers will buy more of it, and it's good for everybody to, stack more sats. And so I think price action up or down is net positive for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I think a lot of people fail to see that, especially in the Bitcoin community. And I think the Bitcoin being the leader of all crypto markets, I think the higher we go, the better, the more people that come in, and the easier Bitcoin is to market to the masses. I think now, with extremely bullish ETFs, I think that one thing I'm studying just on the macro side is the inflows that are coming in through BlackRock, through Fidelity, through VanEck, all these major institutions. And I would say this is where I differ a little bit from some of the Bitcoin maximalists that were very bearish. The ETFs are kind of hated. They were like, oh, the institutions are coming and you're going to take all the Bitcoin, and it's going to be controlled by BlackRock. And I'm like, if you believe in a free market, you should believe that governments are going to go own Bitcoin in their treasuries. And it's up to us to educate people and try to get it, in the masses. But, the masses have had 13 years of accumulation, and many people faded it. So if BlackRock is smarter than the average person, then they should go get more Bitcoin. And it's just going to be a never ending cycle where BlackRock and the governments and individuals will all try to acquire more Bitcoin because it's the only set monetary policy that is backed by math in the entire world. And we know exactly how the monetary policy will act over the next 100 years. And that there's something so beautiful about this time chain that is Bitcoin. And when you look at these moments of printing massive amounts of money and massive inflation all over the world in every country, every single day I get more and more bullish that Bitcoin is the answer to a lot of that. And I'm just so excited for the world to realize that.
Love it. Super interesting. Okay. So we've touched on kind of some different pieces of advice here where, from basically like survive the bear markets and do your best to kind of capture what you can during bull markets in order to survive. I think that's been one piece of advice. I'm curious what else, like any other, putting the question kind of directly to you of what your most generalizable advice might be for founders specifically within crypto. Like and maybe one way of getting at this is like, if you were to go back to kind of yourself at the beginning of this Lolli journey, what would you maybe want to impart that might be useful for others to learn from?
Good question. I feel like I have like 100 answers. I'm trying to think of the best one. I would say trust the process is probably the biggest thing. I think I see a lot of founders go through crypto cycles and give up because it's hard. I think there are many challenging spaces, but I don't think that there are more challenging spaces than Bitcoin or crypto as a whole. I think that it is very difficult to build any company that isn't working for 75% of the time. When you're building an industry, if you're building in healthcare, like that there is demand for healthcare all over the US and really all over the world. And kind of going back to the water example that I gave earlier, like I think it's easy if you're in healthcare to be like, okay, people don't want our healthcare product and we haven't made the right product. But you could be building a great product during a bear market in crypto and it just might not be the right time. And so I see that there's a lot of founders that get rewarded purely for surviving. And I want to say it was Jesse from Kraken that told me this, but one of my first weeks of building Lolli, that, I'll just kind of like share this, was he was just like, the whole key is just keep going. And I think Kraken's like a great example of it, where they have survived and thrived in every bull and bear market. And they just are like cockroaches, they keep going. And I think that's the hardest part, is it's very easy to get discouraged when things are hard and there's no end in sight and you're not dealing with internal issues, you're dealing with external factors, like an absurd amount of external factors in crypto. And in a startup, if you're going to have things go wrong, you want as many of those to be internal as possible. And you want as few of them to be external. Internal, you can control. Internal, you can improve. External are really difficult to navigate. And crypto has more external factors, I think, than any other industry.
Love it. That's great advice. Okay. So Alex, one last question here for you. What is your team working on right now? And what's the best way for people to follow along on the Lolli journey?
Yes. So definitely download the Lolli app, the Lolli extension. We are every day bringing on new merchants that are going to give people more Bitcoin, more ways to earn. Cashback too, if you want to earn cash, not Bitcoin. And yeah, we're really excited about providing more ways for people to earn. We just launched a gaming component to give people the ability to earn when they play mobile games. So, making, really even more accessible. You don't even have to shop now. You can just play mobile games on your phone and you can earn free Bitcoin. There's games on there will give you $25, $30. So there's a lot of ways to earn now, where we'll be launching over the next, few months, more ways for people to earn. And yeah, just really trying to distribute as much Bitcoin as possible to as many people.
Amazing. Alex, thank you so much for the time. Fascinating what you guys are doing. We're excited to be along the journey in our small way. And thank you for coming on the show. Have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and maybe give us a good 5-star rating and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts so you can get all the latest conversations with the most interesting crypto founders, investors, and builders from across the world. Thanks so much. Have a good one.